The Chinese are not a superpower. They are backed up by geography by a string of islands that allow us to interdict constantly. In China, they keep saying they're going to have a nuclear war. Do they understand that they will be personally nuclear dust 30 minutes afterwards? Yes, they do, which is why they don't do it. Is the enormous power of the United States. Unorthodox power. It is not the power the Russians expected to see. The Chinese are not a superpower. They are backed up by geography by a string of islands that allow us to interdict constantly. We have a line of allies from Japan, South Korea, Taiwan for sure, Philippines, Indonesia, if it's Saturday, give them a chance. Indonesia, Straits of Malacca. We have the Australians with us. We have the Japanese actually building ships. We should be really careful with this. The balance of power is so overwhelmingly against China at sea. But coming at us, coming at the U.S. Navy deployed just a little to the east of the line is not possible. So when we look at the situation clearly, when we take a look at what is the situation that we're looking at, one, the Russians are in desperate trouble, and so long as we hold our ground, we don't take casualties, and the Russians are going to have to sue for peace. Putin will wind up in day camp or something. The Chinese are incapable of taking Taiwan, and if they took it, so what? All those who care about Taiwan, raise your hands. Yes, you would get a sense of loss, a sense of, are we capable of defending? And that matters. But in geopolitics, we're kind of ruthless in our thinking. The Chinese aren't going to do that because they don't get much out of it, and they could fail. And the one thing the Chinese can't afford is screwing up an assault on Taiwan. They can't do. People have said, what did the Chinese learn from the Russians in Ukraine? Don't screw up. Very important lesson. Are you sure you can take the U.S. Fleet? Well, I think I can. That's not good enough. So we're in a situation where a Russian-Chinese alignment is impossible. It's just geographically impossible, historically impossible. Secondly, we have seen Russia do something that it absolutely had to do and is in the process of failure. And we see the cost there is. In the Pacific, we see China focusing on a non-critical solution. Take the Philippines. That's a serious solution. Taiwan can be surrounded. Taiwan can be overcome. Taiwan maybe is the best place to do where you waste the Chinese military. A lot of different ways. But what the Chinese have learned is don't mess with the Americans. Now, I got criticized by my readers for being pro-American. Yuck, okay. But the point is, what has emerged from this is the enormous power of the United States. Unorthodox power. It is not the power the Russians expected to see. It is not the Americans standing back and waiting to surge into Ukraine. It is building a structure that doesn't require it. In other words, we look pretty smart. Not that often, but here we go. In China, they keep saying they're going to have a nuclear war. Do they understand that they will be personally nuclear dust 30 minutes afterwards? Yes, they do, which is why they don't do it. As I said about Iran once, the best thing to have is a nuclear program. The worst thing to have is a nuclear weapon. This was about Israel. Okay? Israel can live with a nuclear program. Nuclear weapon, it's going to hit. And the same thing with what we're seeing here. So what is emerging from this, counter to what you will hear, I think, from most other people, is the tremendous power of the United States.